Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the latest of our GAA Coach webinar series. Apologies for a slight delay, just a couple of technical issues on the back end. Tonight's session is being delivered by Ciaran Deely, sorry. Ciaran's topic is preparing David to face Goliath, a case study. So Ciaran will be presenting strategies and tips in preparing your team to face a better resource club or county. Rather than look at theoretical framework, he will present his experience working for QPR and how he's previously prepared his London GAA team to compete against Galway, Mayo and others. So Ciaran is the sports scientist at Queen's Park Rangers Academy, and he's also pursuing a PhD through Northumbria University in profiling neuromuscular fatigue and recovery in elite youth soccer players. He's the CEO of Deely Sports Science, an online community of coaches and sports scientists. He's a former manager and coach for London, fitness coach for Kerala Blasters in the Indian Super League, games promotion officer for WGA, and a player for Wexford, amongst lots of other things. So Ciaran will cover his presentation over the next 40 minutes or so, and we should have a little bit of time at the end for questions and answers. So what I want just to remind everyone, for your questions, if you see the little speech bubble with a question mark in it on your screen, you can click on that and type in any question that you want to ask. Or you can see any question that any of the other people on the call have also asked. So, Ciaran, over to you.
Brilliant, thanks, Peter. I think the delay was down to Carl Gregg's dodgy Wi-Fi over out west there. It was nothing to do with me in London anyway. First of all, just like to say hi to everyone. Thanks for tuning in. It will be a little bit strange because I'm used to the interaction and I enjoy interaction with people and everything. So this will be a funny one, just going through the laptop. But firstly, I'd love to say well done to Peter for the series that he's set up, along with Niall Williams and Carl Gregg and lots of other people, I'm sure. And also getting the camogie involved and the ladies' football. And it's kind of a thing that I feel strongly about, that I'd love to see more women coaches, women players, everything presenting at these things, which they have been the last few weeks, which have been great, and also just at different conferences and stuff like that in the future. So it's brilliant to see a bit of publicity from the camogie and from the ladies' football, which hopefully soon will be women's football. I always find the beginning of presentations the parts that I dislike the most, and I always think of Andrea Pirlo, the great Juventus and Italian footballer, who once said that he loves football but hates warm-ups. And that was the thing that he really disliked at all stages. And I think that's relevant for this presentation as well. And it's certainly relevant in my career, where I always think that, remember, the players are the most important, maybe the skills coaches in there second. But if you're a sports scientist and an S&C coach, remember to let those players play as much as possible. So I've got quite a big presentation, purely because it's an area that I feel very, very passionate about. So I suppose at least it's not as if we're in a global pandemic where we're all going to be here for the next 3 months in our houses anyway, and we've no time to sit down and go through lots of stuff. So I'll stay as long as you want me to, Peter. I go through the presentation. Hopefully I won't speak too much, like my mother always tells me, but I'll gladly sit here afterwards and take any questions about anything, really. I'm happy to take anything. Okay, just a brief little bit about the background, and not because I want to go on about anything like this, but I think it's probably relevant just for the presentation and everything like that. I watched Des Ryan, the great Des Ryan, on Tuesday night in a much fancier part of London than I'm in. He's only up the road, but he's in St Albans outside the M25, whereas I'm down and dirty in Enfield, but luckily have a nice house here anyway. And I saw Des wearing his Arsenal top, so I said, well, I better wear my QPR kit, because we may not be as good as them as a club, but we'll certainly have much cooler kit, I think. The other thing that I have as well, I saw Des had his Liam 2017, which is ages ago, when Galway won the Liam McCarthy Cup. So I said I better get a bit of Wexford in here as well. And when I look back over my career, I suppose if I look at Horace Wood in my club, I think of utter joy really for that period, and winning 4 senior titles, the first ever for the club, and just the friendships that I built up and the local guys that we played with and grew up with, and I got a lot of joy. And when I think of my Wexford career, my playing career, I know I'm probably known better now as a coach than as a player, but I did actually play a little bit. But I think of really be a kind of an unfulfilled career for a little bit of talent that I had. Probably came at the wrong time, where I was a small, slight fella, and we were coming up against the likes of Enda McNulty and Ciaran McGeeney and the likes with Armagh, Tyrone and everything, and may not have suited me at that time during that era. But still got to play in Croke Park, got to play against the likes of Dublin in Leinster finals and Tyrone in All-Ireland semi-finals, and it was a great time also. I bring up the Wexford thing just because I think in some ways, sometimes the greatest players don't always become the best coaches. Now, it can happen. Zinedine Zidane is there after winning 3 Champions League finals with Real Madrid, but he's a little bit of a standoffish coach anyway. He doesn't get involved as much. But I think because in my own career, I experienced disappointment, being a sub, being dropped, being not booted off the panel, but being let go, some success, being captain of my county, playing in Croke Park. I kind of experienced a whole wide range of things, and I think that can stand you in good stead then when you want to become a coach, because the players that I dealt with then with London, and I deal with it on a day-to-day basis with QPR, I have that experience of what they're feeling and the disappointment. It's not all great. Like, in some ways, a player who's naturally gifted might struggle as a coach, because they might think, okay, well, I expect the player just to know what to do in those situations. So I've always felt that that's interesting, and it's helpful. So I've worked I've been a player, manager, coach, and sports scientist, but really, essentially, I think of myself as a coach. And I kind of cut my teeth with Dublin GAA and some great people there with Temple Oak Sing Street, Ger O'Connor, the games manager. And, I think now where you're doing relatively high level stuff and deep sports science stuff with QPR and with others. But I started out with trying to show a 4-year-old or 5-year-old in Bushy Park in Terranure how to kick the ball and how to solo and how to catch. And to me, that's the essence of coaching, is if you can do that, then you can do a lot. And that's always stood me in good stead, as I said, about teaching people and learning skill and skill acquisition, stuff like that. Okay, so sports scientist by trade. I've worked with QPR and Curl Blasters, as Peter said. Amazing experience in India, and trained as that. And at the moment, you can probably see there on the right-hand side, starting into a PhD in sports science, and also doing a UEFA B. So that'll be an interesting question for me into the future. Am I going to go down a lecturing route or sports science? Or, sometimes I think, well, do you know what? Wouldn't it be really cool to apply the coaching and the managing that we did in Gaelic and apply it over into the into the football world, the soccer world, and see what we can do there. So that's an interesting one. And lastly, at the bottom, as Peter said, I set up Deely Sports Science, and I get a lot of joy out of that over the last year. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what this isn't, this presentation. So first of all, I thought I'd do one about sports science in Gaelic football and QPR, and I thought, okay, well, Shane Mangan did a really good presentation on tactical periodization last week. A lot of other people can probably do good presentations with that. So I said, okay, well, maybe I can do it on something else. Okay, so I said, well, let's do a case study about how I prepared London and the experiences that I used from QPR. So it's not what you should do. I'm not here definitely to tell you what you should do. I'm definitely not here to tell you or show you how to win All-Ireland, because you'll see in a moment that we were well off that pace, obviously. It may or may not be applicable to your team. So I'm not going to stop on every slide and say, well, for your underage team, you could do this, or you could do that, or you could apply that, or you could adapt that, which you definitely can. I'm not saying that you can't, you 100% can, okay? But that's up to you to decide. So you need to take things and apply the principles to your team or to your club, okay? I'm definitely not here to tell you a secret formula. of how to perform against a bigger team, against the Goliath. I'm not that interested in one-off games, and I haven't been through my career. I'm a realist when it comes to sport and performance, so I'm more interested in actually how to set up the whole structure around the whole thing, rather than, well, how can you perform against in a one-off game. Now, we will touch on that a little bit later on. The last thing I'm not going to go into that much about, well, this is what we do with QPR, or this is what we did. All I'd say about that, and keep it in mind right throughout, is I think a lot of the principles that I apply with London, or I took from QPR, and I took from Kerala Blasters in India, and I took from Terry Phelan out there, who was working under, and with Dublin GAA and Wexford and stuff like that. So that's just to be mindful of that. So really, this is just, it's a case study of, well, this is what I did, this is what we did. Okay, so moving on to London. So that's my good friend Owen Murray, who was a player, mad about him as a player, even crazier about him as a fella. And that's him with Brendan Murphy. Now, I'm not saying that that's what you should do in order to compete against some of the bigger teams. And remember, Carlo are a bigger team than us, or were a bigger team than us, and I'll get on to that a little bit. Okay, so I want to just give you quickly some context and how we competed. So I took over the London job. Well, initially I went in as a coach when I was with QPR. That was 2004 under Paul Coggins, head coach. Really enjoyed it. And at the end of that year, I said, okay, well, I'm going to take myself to India and work with the Kerala Blasters under Peter Taylor and the great Terry Phelan there. I got a call. Paul Coggins stepped down, and I got a call and said, well, okay, are you interested in taking over manager? And I said, all right, well, if I get a chance to do it my way, let's give this a go. Okay, so for the first 3 months of the season, I was based in India, so pre-Christmas. So I was working out of a hotel in Mumbai, in Goa, in Kochi, in Delhi, all over India. And really, I was trying to organise stuff from there. And I'll be forever indebted to Ross Bennett, who's head of performance for QPR, to Brian McBrearty, to Paddy Curtin, and to Noel Dunning. And those guys kept everything running pre-Christmas by the time I came back. So if you think of, if you're involved with a county, another county, that just would never happen, obviously, that situation. The manager is in India, dictating stuff, and the staff are picking up the slack. That just wouldn't happen. But we managed to get there. Now, we had very few players. We had very little structure. We had to organise everything remotely, the food, the kit, the gear, the training days. I had to ring players and say, well, who's coming out, who's not coming out, and everything like that. So obviously, as you can see, a very challenging situation. But we had good people involved. Okay, and when I say we're a better resource team, I don't look down on David at all. There's nothing wrong with being David. And if you look at that, the picture there, David is nimble, he's creative, he's resourceful, he's small and slight in athletics, so there's nothing wrong with being David. But just to show the reality, you can see that London in general, 2019, like we're bottom of Division 4. Okay, 2018, we actually got up to 4th, and that was our kind of best ever result, really. But just to kind of let you know the situation we were in, I went into that season, I spoke to a lot of people, got a lot of advice from previous coaches and managers, and they said, well, look, can you sort out your defence? Can you set up, not defensively, but start from the back upwards? And I'm a great follower of Italian football and teams like that, where they go, okay, well, let's build from the back. Mourinho back in his heyday. And I thought, right, well, that makes sense to me. So if we can get within 6 points of everybody for that season, that initial season, to me, that's a success. So expectations in London were quite low, obviously. You're not expected to go and win games. They always say, the county chairman and everybody else, that they want you to win 2-3 games plus the championship game, and that's your goal for the season. But it's always going to be a very difficult one to do. So expectations are low. So I thought, okay, I can actually come in here and do something with this if I can do it my way. I'd never managed. I'd never coached a team. I coached with Dublin, obviously, with the underage, and then helped out Kingdom Kerry Gales with the great Noel Dunning. And we won a senior title in London the year before, and that was it. So I'd never managed or anything like that. I was age 32. So it was a real challenge. But that's what we wanted to do. So 6 points, within 6 points. Okay. So why should you listen to me in any of this? And this is a good question and a relevant question. And it comes down to really, well, what is success to you? And what level are you playing at? I'm a great believer in sport that everybody finds their level. And that's why I'm such a supporter of the All-Ireland B Championship, hopefully in a slightly better organised way over the next few years, with plenty of promotion around it and everything like that. But I'm a great believer in everybody finds their level. And not everybody can win All-Ireland. Not everybody can win a Connacht. So what can you do? So if you want to see, that's my, that's how we did. So that's my record as London manager in the first Connacht game championship match. And that's how you're judged, really. I never won a championship game with London. As you can see, the first year we lost by 13 points against Mayo, 3 points, Leitrim, 10 points, Sligo, 4 points, Galway, and that's our record. Okay. Now I'll have my own thoughts about that, whether I deem that to be a success or not. Ultimately, to me, obviously I failed as the manager because we didn't win a championship game. But how do you deem success? And that's an important one. I remember coming into the Mayo game, as I said, I'd never managed. I was 32, 33. I didn't sleep in the lead into that game, thinking that, you know what, if things don't go right, if we're not 100% ready for this lot, this could be on live TV, losing by 30, 40 points. How's that good for us? How's it good for them? And luckily, we actually performed. And you know what? If you think about it, when you look at some of the results in the provinces, in Leinster, in different games, sometimes keeping the score down to that kind of level is not so bad. The Leitrim game, to me, was a big one in that we had that game won and conceded 2 late goals. And I think if we had got over the line on that day, it probably would have been a very different record over the coming season. But anyway, we move on from that. So here's the Galway game. So this is the last year, the last game, that second last game I was involved with London after finishing up with them. And this is Sean Hickey, corner forward, London born. Killian Butler, London born as well, had scored an unbelievable goal in the first half. He took a shot. Sean Hickey came in at the back post with 5 minutes, with 1 minute to go probably. We were 3 points down, and as Paddy O'Shea said, sometimes a grain of rice can make the difference between winning and losing. Sean sadly had lost his father, had passed away the day before, and speaks volumes to the fella that he was, that he told myself and one other coach and nobody else, and he wanted to play, and he announced it to the players after the game. Okay. So Shane Walsh and Ronaldinho, and I bring this up because looking at that record, obviously you can say, well, that's a complete and utter disaster, a failure. And what were London at, and who am I to tell anybody about, well, this is the program that you should follow and stuff like that. But it's relevant about who you're playing against and who you are. And I put in this short little video for Ronaldinho. I don't know if the sound working or not. Let's see. I hope the sound worked because it's quite good commentary, and I think Micheál and Murray and some of Ger Canning might take a leaf out of the South American commentators. I put that video in because I like looking at Ronaldinho play and I like videos, but also, as George Orwell said, all animals are created equal, but some animals are more equal than others. And the point about Shane Walsh and Ronaldinho, so Ronaldinho, as a young boy with his club in Brazil, he was the only player that his grassroots club manager, when they interviewed him years later, said, you never know if a player is going to make it and you never know to what level they're going to be. But Ronaldinho is going to be a World Cup winner. So there are some players that stand out much more than others. Players like Shane Walsh and Damien Comer and guys like that are some of those players. So you can't really compare London with Galway or London with Mayo because it's a different level. So Ronaldinho's first goal for Brazil, the audacity to do something like that, to make a fool of Dunga, a legendary figure in the Brazilian game, and then to the absolute peak of his power to be scoring 2 goals against Real Madrid in the Bernabeu, and to make Helguera absolutely flat-footed as he skipped by him. And that's important because Shane Walsh's career will be a failure if he doesn't win an All-Ireland medal, or at least numerous Connacht medals, which he has. A London player's career will be a success if they win a game, okay? And I know I'm really harping on that point, but I think it's an important one. So I thought then, well, right, how can we compete? So if you think of the likes of Dublin, I went back to my football world, which I understand and know a lot of. So I think, okay, well, that's like a Man City. They have the best players. They have a brilliant program with brilliant people. They invest in youth and the future, and they have a load of money. Only mess in Dublin. Okay, and then you look at the likes of Tyrone, and Tyrone people probably won't be happy if I say that they're lowly Southampton, but they're probably higher than that. But still, Southampton, they don't have the best players, but they have an integrated program and they invest in youth and they have great facilities and everything. So what are London then? Well, London are probably a Burnley. Okay, maybe we're probably a Bournemouth in that we played always good football, and that was important to me as well. Or a QPR, maybe. So then I started breaking down analysing the opposition team. So when they have the best players, the funding, the facilities, the success, or the history, well, on the other hand, maybe then they might have splits in the group. They might have wastage of funding, which they 100% do, I believe. They might be a little bit spoon-fed with the facilities. Nice, relaxed facility, nice environment. I was reading Sean Kavanagh's book the last few weeks, who's now my accountant with the business, and he said, brilliant facilities in Tyrone, and sometimes, do you know what, it can be good to get back to little small facilities like your club and stuff like that, because they keep you real, okay? And the success in the history, well, maybe there's a short-term pressure to be successful, and managers maybe only kept short-term, or they may be under huge pressure to succeed or to win games. So then I thought, okay, well, we don't have the best players, but we can build a core group. Now, we can do that by hopefully holding on to players, which is a problem for London, but also by really, really top-notch individualised coaching. And as regards wastage and funding, yeah, it can be a problem, 100%, but I like to keep things slimline, and I like to have a really innovative sports science team. And if we've crap facilities, which we definitely do, it might build resilience. Now, Ruislip is a great pitch, but training facilities on half a rugby pitch and things like that, but it will build resilience in our players. And we need to have good psychologists, good coaches, good, excellent support staff. And then we may not have had success in the past or history to tap into, but can I take these players on a bit of a journey? Can I build a siege mentality and a bit of a band of brothers kind of thinking amongst all the players? So this is the 6-step model then that I came up with, okay? Model of development, and plus a little bit around performing on the big day. I'm looking at the girls clapping for the NHS workers outside. So I think about, okay, I need to think long term here. I need to think into the future. I need to make sure that planning and organization is absolutely excellent. It's the best that it can be. I need to have such a really good support staff around me. And I did right from the beginning when I was in India, and I delegated to those people through necessity, and they took over running the show. I came back then just before Christmas, and we got the show back on the road even further. I need to have the best sports science, and that's the kind of thing that, okay, not came naturally to me, but that was my experience and knowledge and my working environment. So that was something that I could definitely tap into. Then the coaching, and I always think, well, the coaching has to be world class, and that's what I said to the staff always, that I don't want to be a step up from what we had before, even though I was the coach before under Paul Coggins, but I want to be better than that. And I didn't want to be the best coach in Division 4 of the National League. Or I didn't want to even be, right, well, it's the best coaching in the GAA. I said, I want it to be world class. I want to be to the best that it possibly could be. And how I personally have always done that is I went and I looked at, well, let's read about, let's watch the best in the world then. So try and get speaking to Jim Gavin, try and read about him, everything about what he's doing, all his interviews. There are many of them, and he's very forthright, as we know. Jim McGuinness, I met in Beijing on my travels, tapping into that, but also then what does Jose Mourinho do? What does Pep Guardiola? What does some random basketball team, high school over in America, how do they set up their coaching? And then I wanted to reflect at all stages. I wanted to be an open book and reflect and be open to feedback and open to criticism as well. And actually, as part of my business, DeelySportsScience.com, and our podcast that we just launched recently in the last few weeks, we discuss a lot of these things. So it's quite interesting. It's been a really interesting journey actually doing this presentation, because it's forced me to kind of look back and think, okay, well, how did things go with London, and kind of reflect on it. So it's been interesting. Okay, first one, long-term plan. So you've got a long-term plan, and then this fella turns up. So Muggsy turns up, rocks up into London. And I say that with the absolute best intentions, because actually, despite what some people think, Muggsy was absolutely brilliant for us. And he had a way of getting the troops together, getting into a tight little group, and he helped us a lot through his experiences with Tyrone, and he was brilliant. But that was obviously part of the challenge of London, that it's very difficult to think about long-term stuff, because players come and go, squads change over, and there's nothing you can do about that. Okay, but what we needed to do was that I and the staff and the team needed to have belief. I needed to have a lot of patience and think, okay, well, this is not going to change overnight. And luckily with London, as I said, the county board, the expectations are quite low. Okay, I'd be probably highly critical of the county chairman in London, but I give him one thing, that there was a certain amount of patience there to allow me to do it my way. You have to have courage. You need a good value system. And when I talk about values, I mean, Des Ryan spoke about some really good values the other night. And it's about respect, resilience, resourcefulness, being a good person, helping players, whether they're the best player or not player, and all those kind of things. The mission, I wanted to make London GAA a serious inter-county team. Now take what you may. So I have my own ideas, but I wanted them not to be serious in their outlook. There was a little bit of that, but I wanted other teams to start taking London seriously and start fearing London a little bit. Now we were unfortunately, we suffered because of that. We were a product of that, because the better we began to play, the more teams then came over to London and took us seriously, and they were staying one step ahead of us then. Planning and organising. Okay, so I thought, well, I'm going to play to my strengths. It comes naturally to me as a sports scientist. Sports scientists are organised, they're diligent, they like data, they like details, they're connecting with people, they're collaborating, they're bringing people together. So I thought, okay, well, let's use that as well as I can. One of the best things I did was I took in a head of operations, so Brian McBrearty at the beginning, and then Joe Coulter later on, and as assistant manager, both lads. And they really helped as regards the details. But one thing I would mention about that, if anybody is looking for an operations person, get a coach, get somebody who understands, the game. They don't have to be the best coach, but somebody who's a football person or a sporting person, so they understand. You don't need just somebody to do an Excel sheet or something like that, just an organizer. You need somebody who gets the team, who understands the team, can feel them. This was all very closely linked to coaching, obviously, and I'll mention that later on, just about organising the sessions and stuff like that. And also, I needed to delegate a lot, and that as I said, came quite naturally, I think. The other big thing, and I suppose it comes into the culture, and actually something I needed to mention on the last slide, was in ways I needed to change the culture of London GAA as much as possible. Now, Paul Coggins was very successful when he was there, but the culture was slightly different, and I wanted to bring that into a kind of a modern era. The big thing, and I always mentioned it to a good staff member, Dr. Sean Carmody, maybe he's listening, who's just finished with QPR and is moving up to Liverpool FC to his PhD and work with them under Klopp. And he was involved with us with London. And I said always that we need to tap into what London have. Like, what is London as a city? It's dynamic, it's modern, it's young, it's interesting, it's a bit crazy, it's creative, and we need to tap into that. And that's what I wanted us to be. And that's why I brought in a lot of good young people, staff, which I'll cover in a second. And that's what we want to tap into. And that's why as well, I got chatting to Paul Galvin and Harry Redknapp and Bernard Jackman and whoever it was. And I said, okay, well, let's get these people involved because it's interesting and it's different. And I want to show the players, okay, we're serious about this. Okay. But the whole culture of the setup and the planning and the organising was player ownership. And when I think back now and I've listened to Eddie Jones' podcast and stuff like that, that's the way sport is going. And that's the less that the coaches can say and the more the players can talk and do and organise, then the better. And I can say that that's the same in your club team, your underage team, your county team, your Dublin team. I mean, look at what Desi Farrell is doing, great man. Look at what Jim Gavin did. It's all about player ownership, and they own the journey. It's not you. You're a facilitator, and that's your style. Okay, the support staff then, like I said, young and innovative. So I brought in the best people I could. Now it's a challenge in London because not loads and loads of coaches, but luckily I came across some really good people. So that was the night after the Galway game in Ruislip. Ross Bennett in the centre with Joe Coulter. So Ross came in with me right from the beginning. I'm involved with QPR, I'm involved with Deely Sports Science as head of performance. And all I can say about Ross is I hope everybody finds somebody like that in their career, in their working life, who you can just buzz off as much with and who understand each other and can do lots of good stuff with, okay, as regards your work. And that's really, really important. I think his wife said something like that at their wedding, which I couldn't go to. I had to stay away from it. It was too difficult for me. And Joe Coulter then as well as my assistant manager, and he's involved with DSS. He was brilliant at all stages as well, and just understood me and understood the setup. Michael Maher, who's now the London manager, and he was being brilliant as a coach, coming from the football world, the soccer world. Adrian Creamer behind came from Watford Football Club. Colm Smith came from Chelsea Women and now West Ham Women Football Team. Diarmuid O'Donoghue came from Fulham Academy. So I tried to get in the best of the best that I could get access to. I also made sure to have a mentor. And I heard Des speaking about Liam Hennessy and others and Eamon O'Shea. I watched Eamon O'Shea's talk here last day and it was brilliant. I loved it. Completely different than my kind of way of doing it, but I loved it. And I'm a big fan of Tipperary hurling. So Noel Dunning was my mentor, and Aidan O'Brien back with Wexford, who was my school teacher and coach with Horace Wood, were my mentors, and I could speak to and ask. And then I wanted people to be critical and to ask questions and to challenge. But on the other hand, it was one philosophy, and my philosophy and the lads' philosophy that we came up with. Everyone had a job description, and then after every year, I changed it up. So Alex Ferguson and others, every few years, they brought in new assistant coaches, new head coaches, and just to have a difference and challenge people differently. So that was my setup, the matrix with Neo and Trinity. And obviously the players are at the center of that, and I had all these different people to take care of. And that was probably coming from QPR, I suppose, just that experience of working in a high performance unit and having the analysts and the coaches and the medical. But I tried to go a little bit deeper and say, okay, well, that's not a player, it's a person. And you try and manage that person. And also with the coaching, I wanted them to coach the detail. I didn't want them just to put on sessions for the sake of it, or do a drill or a practice or a phase of play because, well, let's just do a phase of play, an attacking phase of play. Well, why? Why are we doing that tonight? What outcomes are we looking for? The analysis I'll come on to later, which is really interesting, individual analysis. And as regards the medical, I call it care, because we had plenty of issues about looking after young Irish fellas over in London on their own without their family, and some of the issues that they throw up. Okay, my approach about the coaching in sports science then was, the lads used to slag me, the physios, Ronan O'Sullivan, he used to say, Ciaran's always saying, well, I wonder if we could something. And that's how I try to approach it, that we'd be sitting down for dinner and say, well, do you know what? Do you know what would be interesting? If we could look at this, if we could get somebody in, if we could get a psychologist in to do one-on-ones with specific players, or if we could get the nutritionist to do like click and share with those groups or them groups. I wonder if we could devise a specific speed plan for certain players that really need it. Or I wonder if, you know, we could bring in Bernard Jackman or whatever it was. And that's how I tried to kind of gain those inches. Of course, when you're coming from the sports science world, you have to be careful that you don't tip the scales too much into the sports science. And that was something I think I suffered a little bit at the beginning, probably the first year, where I thought, okay, let's get all these sports science things in and it'll be brilliant and everything. But ultimately, the coaching is so important as well. When I say about sports science, I wanted to be innovative, and I say the heavy lifting. Now, that's not actually the heavy lifting of lifting weights and in the gym, and obviously they did that. But the heavy lifting really, as regards sports science, is about, it takes time. It takes a lot of time, sports science. Good sports science takes time. And as you can see there, like from the beginning, London had none of this. A lot of GAA teams had none of this. The top teams did. So we said, okay, well, we're going to gain a few inches here by introducing this stuff. And that if the other teams that we're playing against in Division 4 are better than us and better funded and better facilities and being together as a team longer, well, how can we, what's the window of opportunity? What can we gain from this then? What can we introduce? So things like, I spoke to the good people at Stat Sports, been very supportive of me and the business actually, and they gave us use of old Vipers, Stat Sports Vipers, which we were using years ago with QPR. And from that then you can get the high speed running, the distance, accel, decel, max speed, sprint distance, all that. And also then we started prescribing sessions, what we wanted, how high the load, how low, and I'll show that in a second. And obviously we were lucky with Smarter Base from Croke Park as well, which they gave lots of teams. So these then were the daily sports science data. So this is what I say about the heavy lifting. It takes time. There's no magic bullet. There's no secret. This takes time collating information. At the beginning, we started on Google Sheets. At the end, we had Smarter Base. We had paper and pen. And a lot of people would say, well, do you know what? That's a waste of time. And I think, well, maybe for you it is. But we were trying to gain every last inch that we could. So we introduced all these things. So that was just to find out how the players were on a daily basis, rating themselves for sleep, nutrition, hydration, soreness, fatigue, stress, motivation. And these are typical things that you see in professional clubs up and down the country. And I know now a lot of GAA county teams will have at this stage as well. The RPE scale then, I know Shane Mangan covered that the other night, about on a scale of 1 to 10, how difficult was the session. And then we had the duration of the session, and that would give us a training load measure. And then anybody can do that without any GPS, obviously. So from the GPS, then we got a session trace. So I find that's really interesting, because if I look at that session activity trace, I can see that we did a warm-up, we had possession practice, we did, 8 max speed runs, about 8 meters per second. We went on to fairly high intensity tackling drills, I'd say, or small-sided stuff. We did kind of a setup, 3 sets of a setup. We moved on to 3 small-sided games or medium-sided games, those over on the right-hand side. And we finished then with 4 sets of max speed, or let's call them lactate runs or fitness drills. So it's quite interesting to look across that activity trace. And they're just the speed on the y-axis and the time on the x-axis. Down there, the session absolutes, so we could find each player who was doing the highest amount of running, who was doing too much, who needed to move a little bit more, and that was all information that was fed into our knowledge then. And then did they meet the threshold? So this was quite unique that we were doing, I think, where we had levels that we expected that session to be at, and then we could see whether they were hitting green, amber, red, whether it was too much or not. The weekly data then, so that's just to see that the players hit their 90% up to 100 max speed, which is a preventer of hamstring injuries, as anybody sports scientist will know. Then we looked across the week, we plotted, well, what should they be getting? High and low loads, the green and the red traces, and then the blue with what we actually did. So they were in terms of distances, so 4,000 meters up to 6,000. So we could track then. So that's from week to week. That was our macro cycle then. We could see throughout a 12-week period with a break in the middle there, maybe that was Christmas time, and we could see, okay, well, what kind of levels were they hitting? And I'll come on to that, the periodized plan, in a minute. So this is how our week looked in general, I would say. Now, this was due to logistical issues. We only had a gym, for instance, on a Tuesday night, access, but I actually quite liked it. And I know Shane did a lot of tactical periodization the other night, and actually Shane started out with us as well in with London a couple of years ago. But this was actually something I quite liked, because it meant that we had a game on the Sunday, Monday was off as recovery, Tuesday then was back in the gym, back together, Wednesday was a high load session on the pitch, Thursday off, Friday then was a lighter session, RPE of about 5, Saturday off, and then into our game, our high session on a Sunday. So that's just, you can see on the left axis, that's RPE out of 10. The blue line is duration on the right, and then the days of the week. So here's how we designed our training week. And this is how, we didn't have the players, we didn't have all the resources and everything like that, but we said, well, I want our setup to be absolutely integrated together. So I wanted the coaching team and the sports science team together to organize this, the goalkeeping coach, the physio, the psychologist even the nutritionist. And I wanted people to all have an input about, well, how we design our week. Now, I call this a hybrid tactical periodization, not because we knew better than Jose Mourinho or lots of others or Shane Mangan, but because it was tactical periodization, and tactical periodization basically means that everything is integrated. So you can integrate your technical, tactical, physical, psychosocial all together in one session from week to week, all the time. So all your fitness work is done with the ball and stuff like that. Now, we weren't that. So I do believe in isolating some components of fitness and some components of skill acquisition, overloading that, and that's how they learn. And there's been such a shift away from drills and unopposed skills practice in the last few years that it's practically a dirty word to say, drills. But drills are okay too. They've had a place in sports since the dawn of time, and they still will in many years' time again. Obviously, games-based approach is the best, but sometimes you have to isolate something. As we say in QPR, we bring it back to the lab, practice it, overload it, fix it, and then you integrate it back into your match situation then from there. Okay. Chris Ramsey was on our podcast a couple of weeks ago, the Locker Room podcast, and he said, QPR technical director, he said that you don't give a young primary school child a really difficult maths equation, long division, and say, okay, let that be the learner. So let the game be the learner and you solve that. You don't do that. You build blocks all the way up. You build a foundation, the easy stuff, and you keep adding layers to it. So we tried to have all that. So I call it hybrid because we had isolated fitness work, isolated skills work, but also game-specific work and phases of play also. We always looked, well, you can have your plan, but you always go back to, well, what did the game teach you then from the week before? And that's called in the EIS over here, English Institute of Sport, which a few good Irish lads are in. They call that performance backwards approach. So you say, so for instance, myself and Ross Bennett largely would sit down and plan out this for the coming week. And we'd have all different things in the different sessions, as you can see. But for instance, if we are beaten by Limerick, or worse, beaten by Carlow, them Carlow lads, Turlock and Stevie Poacher, and we were cleaned out in midfield on kickouts. Well, then obviously on Wednesday night, what's the first thing we're going to do, regardless of the plan in place? We're going to work on kickouts. So that's your performance backwards approach. So get your plan in place, but always be open to changes. I'm going to go quickly through the rest of sports science and S&C work because there's so much in it. But I just want to show that sports science is logical and it's a lot of common sense, but there's a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of hard work, long hours, a lot of planning and stuff like that. And a lot of people don't want to do that. But I said, okay, well, this is a chance for us to grab a few yards on the opposition. So these are all the things that the S&C, Colin Smith, mostly Ross Bennett, obviously, Michael Milan, all lads now who actually are working in professional football over in London, which is brilliant. And a lot of other people, interns and stuff like that. And I got people in to help out as much as I can. But as you can see, they had to do the periodized plan, the locomotive skills, the fitness testing, gym, rehab, recovery. But I saw that as a chance for us to steal a march. Okay, everything had to be individualized. So that in terms of the locomotive continuum over on the left-hand side, also the physical development programs for every player. This is not different than any other, a lot of other good teams I know, obviously, but we tried to make everything individual. The fitness work, then the criteria-based fitness testing, we tried to have, well, there's certain expectations that players needed to hit. So we broke it down, and instead of going top third, middle third, and bottom third, we said, okay, well, what's our expectations? Where should they be? So green then are the players actually who are hitting the levels that we expect and that we want. Amber are areas of development, and red then need to get a move on. Ross Bennett designed the aerobic development continuum. So that was basically just taking the players through fitness work, more or less starting at high volumes, low intensity, and working our way to low volumes, high intensity. So basically taking them into championship or to league. On the right hand side then we designed a rehab continuum, myself and Ross together, and that was different pillars: aerobic development, locomotive, max speed, and technical skills. And we had different levels from 1 to 8 then that the player had to go through. Now here's where the last few inches that I tried to find, and I think we did in some part. And Peter, I hope I'm not going to go on too long for you now and the people out there. But I thought of, at the beginning, I thought, well, sports science can get us a long way, and good coaching and improving the players and building a culture. And by the end, once you have those things in place, well, then what else? So what's the next step then? And I thought, well, okay, well, psychology and nutrition, what more can we do with that? And if I look back now, and if I had continued on, they were two of the areas that I would have gone deeper into and added more layers to, I think, because they're the final inches that you get. Now, all the teams obviously can have a psychologist and can have a nutritionist and all that, great. But I wanted to go deeper. I wanted, as always, with everything, I wanted it to be individualized, okay? I wanted player ownership, and I wanted coach integrated. And they were the three big things. Okay, so they did the initial group sessions with the teams for both nutrition and psychology, but then it became more individualized. So if there was an injured player or rehab player, so as soon as somebody gets injured, straight away, the doctor's off the phone for me, Dr. Sean, then I'm saying, okay, get the psychologist in touch with him, get the nutritionist in touch. Because the nutritionist then can advise that player about eating certain foods, extra proteins, extra green leafy vegetables, extra little supplements, whatever it is then that can help that player return quicker, but also just to recover, to heal that tissue, to heal that bone, to improve strength of that muscle, whatever it is. And the psychologist, well, that player is just after experiencing a catastrophic injury, for instance, an ACL, which we had a few of. So that player is going to be down in the dumps and everything like that, and I can help them and I can chat to them, and Joe can, and all the other lads, but they may need a sports psychologist to dig a little bit deeper and chat with and support, okay? The GPA were fantastic, and they gave us great support as well. And you have to remember that in London, young fellas over There can be gambling issues, there can be drink, there can be other stuff, there can be people away from home, all that. So they were fantastic support on another level, a higher level. And Fran O'Reilly, the great Fran O'Reilly, who helped me a lot through different things as well, is doing brilliant work there. And then with the nutrition, then just click and share. So I wanted players to think about their lifestyle choices away from the training pitch. So you can be there on the training pitch for 3 sessions a week, an hour and a half each. So that's 4.5 hours per week. You have access to a player plus a gym session, 5.5, 6 hours, whatever. Our program was never that crazy in volume. But what are they doing then away from that? They're getting the tube into work. They're snacking and eating. They don't have their parents to cook them meals at home and stuff like that. They can't even get home to their parents for a weekend or whatever it is. So that was really important. And both of them at the bottom there are linked to their individual plan, which I'll come on to in a few minutes. So the individualized coaching. And a lot of people will be aware of the 4-corner approach. It's a lot comes from football as well, and then agreed outcomes. So what we did when we were designing our session, as I say, that the period, we always worked off the periodized plan, but adapted it as if we needed to. We had to work on stuff from the last game. So again, it can be adapted, so a plan, but adaptation. But then always as well, I had to think, well, the plan is the plan and the physical outcomes. And that's why I say about the 4-corner approach. So you have the technical, the tactical, the physical, and the psychosocial. If you're just focused on technical, tactical, great, but what about the trade-off against the physical? And if you're just focusing on the physical, fantastic, but what about the trade-off against the psychosocial? So this all needed to be integrated, and we need to be thinking of all those things at all times. It sounds like a lot, and it is, and it's difficult, but in other ways, it's very, very logical. And at times with London, because the squad of 30, we usually got a change of 15 every year, new players. I had to, at all stages, think about setting up the team. So I needed an actual body of players there set up as a tight unit in defence, and then scrap it all and start again the following season and begin the whole process all over again. And then what happened was that would be done up on an Excel sheet. It'll be saved in our Dropbox account that all the staff have access to. I get it on my phone, screenshot it, send it to the players' WhatsApp group, send it to the staff WhatsApp group, and then everybody was aware, okay, these are the things that I need to work on tonight's session. So MDT team, that's our multidisciplinary team, that's our sports science, our coaching, psychologist, medical. And the big thing that I wanted from every session was that there's absolutely no wastage in any of the sessions for any minute. I'm not a big believer in spending loads of time talking and discussing and everything on the pitch for ages. I wanted no wastage. Move from practice to practice to practice. Okay, debrief. So bring the players in and ask them, what do you feel? What did you expect? How could you have done better? Briefly, 3 points, only 3 points, and then back in we go, or even less. Okay. So I needed to think, is every player going to achieve their specific outcomes in every session? Now that's a big challenge. But for instance, if a goalkeeper isn't practicing his kickouts every session, that's a problem. If he's not practicing his saving, if he's not practicing his commandeering the parallelogram, whatever it is. So I needed to introduce that into every session. Now that can be the simple thing of an attacking phase of play, and to start off, instead of me just knocking the ball into a player, the goalkeeper first kicked it out and then we play. So it can be simple things like that, very, very simple. And that was coach-led. And then on the other side, the S&C led, made sure that we had to have the locomotive skills, the aerobic development. Now, if you see on the right-hand side then, that's our session plan. So we nearly always, we'd have our warm-up, we'd move into our locomotive skills, so that's ASAP, acceleration, deceleration, speed, agility, plyometrics. Normally go into principles of play, a phase of play, some sort of games, small-sided games, medium-sided, large-sided, and then finish off with fitness development. Now, performance analysis is something that I love, and I think about the generalist versus the specialist. Okay, and actually the podcast coming out this week with Rich Clark from the UK SCA over here in England. we spoke a lot about this and what's it best to be, a specialist or a generalist. And I love this picture of Guardiola where he's just won the Premier League, he's heading back on his flight, and all he wants to do is start analysing the game. Season is finished, and yet he wants to start analysing the game and looking at things and how can we improve. And that to me is the beauty of the performance analysis. And that's why I'm probably a generalist. I like to tap into sports science, coaching, performance analysis, medical, rehab. But you need to find your way and see what you like. So the performance analyst then, this was all about player ownership. So I tried to get good work that we were doing. So for instance, over the 4 seasons, I think the amount that I was speaking started high and got less and less and less and less and less and less. And the players started really low and they started going higher and higher and higher and higher. So it was this perfect X-shaped graph, whatever you want to call it. And my goal by the end was, could I say hardly nothing at all? Could I get to the stage where in our team meetings, which we had lots of, could I just introduce the topic and then the players take it over and then I facilitate that conversation and I guide it along the way? So you have to make sure, remember, you've got 30 players and a staff, and players will take conversations off in different directions and discussions, but you need to bring it back to what you want to get out of that meeting. And Noel Dunning taught me that a long time ago, about you need to guide that conversation to where you want it to be. It's not a complete open forum. So this was all about player ownership. And what we did was we did scouts reports, and we got people to go to games and stuff like that and do up reports, send them over to us, give them to the players, because I said, okay, well, let's give them information, and that's what I wanted to do. But also then, by the end, we wanted to have the players doing actually the opposition clips. So we had Huddle. We were lucky enough to have Huddle, which is a brilliant online video sharing platform. We all had access. Every video, every training session was uploaded up there. You could have interactive discussions with the players. So if you see there a young London-born player, Aidan McGarvey, brilliant player, was mad about him. He looked at his training session, he looked at his Leitrim match, and he then created clips himself, sent them to me privately, and then with Joe and some of the staff, and then we could have an interactive conversation and discuss, okay, what could I have done there? What would I have done differently? Should I have given the ball easier? You can do little writings on it. And I love that, because that's proper coaching. And remember, in Gaelic games, because you're not full-time, in QPR you can do that, sit down with the player and spend an hour with them after lunch in the performance analysis suite. In Gaelic games, you don't have access, you're remote. So as much as possible, you want to do things remotely, online if possible, like that. So that was a big thing. By the end of it, we had the players doing the opposition clips. So we actually didn't do the clips ourselves as a staff. So the players would go in, Matt Moynihan, or Owen Flanagan was going to be marking Shane Walsh. So then we uploaded 4 to 5 games of Galway from the National League. Owen Flanagan then had to go in himself along with another centre back, who was sub or whatever, and they had to create the clips of Shane Walsh, because it meant that they knew exactly then what type of player Shane Walsh was. Did he like moving off his left or right, a dip of his shoulder, what positions he would get in, and they would teach the rest of us, because remember, the players know far more than us. So bringing it all together then with the unit and the individual. So in GAA, the focus a lot of times is on the team. Now, myself and Ross are completing the UEFA B coaching at the badge at the moment, and they're always talking about the team, the unit, the individual. And a lot of times the unit and individual get left behind a bit. So that was how I was trying to focus on the individual. So as Jim Gavin said, instead of being or not exactly his words, but I didn't want an experiment like Pavlov's dogs, where they do whatever you say, or they're a product of the environment or different stimuli. I was thinking more about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And at the very pinnacle of that is the self-actualization. And every player wanted to be better. And you help yourself to help the team. And that was our focus at all stages. So we broke it down into position essentials. So this is all work from the players. This is none of our work. So in our meetings and our training camps in Ireland and our away games, which were brilliant for us, they would actually get into their little groups, and facilitated by us, obviously, they would come up with what they wanted to call themselves. So the mongrels, the generals, the line breakers, the match winners. And then what they would do is to have a bit of fun with it, to come up with their picture, to say, okay, well, what is it that we actually do? And what do we need to be then? What are the characteristics that we need to have to be good at that? And we were getting to the stage where we're even starting to look at the performance fitness testing and profiling the player. So if we wanted a wing back for London, if you're not really, really fit, aerobic fitness, or you're not fast, you're probably not going to play wing back for us. It's probably not going to happen. And also the psychological strength-based competency quizzes and interviews. And all these things are online, available for anybody who wants. And over on our website, obviously. And just to dig into what type of person are we looking for certain positions. And then, obviously, principal, sub-principal, Shane covered that last week. And then they would come up with a kind of a summary of the stuff that they needed to be. So out of all of those 10 or 15 things, well, what do they actually need to be? And we call these the position essentials. And the pivot man, that's normally our number 10, our Owen Murray, or our Jarlath Brannigan, or somebody like that, and what they needed to be and what they needed to do. So, for instance, if a player, our number 10, didn't know how to dictate the game tempo, or he wasn't always getting on the ball all the time, well, either he needs to improve on that, or he's not going to be a number 10 for us. Okay, so we gave them specific job descriptions and roles. The IAP process then, so finishing off this, that's the individual action plan. And this was something that it was interesting. We were concurrently doing this in London. It was being done in QPR Academy, and when we brought Bernard Jackman across, he was actually doing it in the Dragons rugby club as a team as well. And this is where, and you can call it ILP or player performance plan or person performance, whatever you want. We call it individual action plan. And again, we worked across the four corners: technical, tactical, physical, psychosocial. And we brought everything with it. So the sports science, the huddle, the analysis, the position essentials, everything that had to be. And it was player-led, as always, and coach facilitated. We initially did it in our January training camp, and then throughout the season a number of times as well. And it really became the cornerstone of all our work. So when we were sitting down to design the session plan, we were thinking, well, how does this fall into the player individual action plan? So again, I'm sure anybody who is involved with London will know who that our number 10 is, one of my favourite players. And this was a really good example because it had lots of detail and it was specific and relevant and measurable. So we had a mission statement from the player. So what do they want to be? So Liam Gavigan was something like, I wanted to be the best player in Division 4 and I wanted to lead the team as captain, something like that. His super strength was breaking lines at speed and getting critical scores. That's what he was good at. Your super strength. What are you absolutely best at? And then this was down to the player and the coach then coming up with these, as I say, technical, tactical, physical, psychosocial. And they had to be specific. You couldn't say, well, I want to improve my kicking. Because I'm like, okay, well, what kind of kicking? What are you talking about in that? I need more than that. So what type of kicking? What range? What feet? What distance? What type of pass? Is it shooting? Is it, what is it? And then it needs to be relevant. So for instance, for our centre forward, probably didn't care whether he could catch a high ball. Maybe. I'm just trying to think. Maybe it wasn't applicable. Or maybe our corner forward, wasn't the one who was tracking all the time, so not applicable to them. And then it had to be measurable, if at all possible. And that was easy with the physical stuff, but a little bit trickier then with the psychosocial and the technical, tactical. But we were getting there. Number 6 then was reflection. And I like to think that, like, I'm good friends with a lot of journalists, and you think it's hard at the top. You think it's hard, being in Division 1 and everything like that, and it is. But God, it's hard in Division 4. And any of the managers, coaches and players will tell you that. It's a tough gig back down there. You have very few people at the games, everything like that, and it's a tough gig, tricky one. So we had a strategy of plan, do, and review, and we would always review. Now, when I say reflection is brutal, it was absolutely brutal, and I put myself at the top of that. I always questioned myself first. It was first, second, and last. So what could I have done better? What did I not do well enough? Could we have been fitter? Could we have, by the way, we never lost the game because of our fitness, and that was attributed to Ross Bennett and the players, I think. But what else did we train too hard on the Friday night before the match Sunday? Were my tactics not right? Did I not give them enough information? Did I give them too much information? Do we need to do more plyometrics on the field? Do we need to change the gym program? What about the nutrition? Is it good enough? It was always a reflection and go, well, I'm going to be brutally honest with myself. Okay. And we were ferocious learners, the whole lot of us. So we were all the time trying to read and learn about stuff. And as I said, listen to podcasts, read articles from random things from different parts of the world or business and stuff like that. So we were ferocious learners and reading about stuff, and nothing was off the table. So we wanted absolutely put it all out there. What do we need to improve? And the good thing was that because we lost so many games, like a winning game sometimes and a winning team can hide problems underneath. So you can be doing, the things that you're doing is not so great and there's issues there, but when you win the game and nobody cares, like, okay, who cares? We won, that's all that matters. Whereas we were like, we had to continually analyze ourselves all the time and say, well, what do we need to do better? And I would say, leave your ego at the door and do that because it's important. I put in next season because every year we said, right, well, what next? What can we do? Like Dublin do this. I saw Dublin doing a warm-up in Croke Park one night in National League night before our game. And I said, okay, I like that. That's something we can do. I saw Tyrone set up on the kickouts, opposition press. Right, that's what we can do. What next? What next? What next? But having said that, I didn't want to always say, well, we'll do it next season. We'll do it afterwards, because I wanted to do it. Well, let's do it now. Let's do it now. Let's not wait. Very briefly then, that's the 6-step model of development. As regards Championship Day, my good friend Terry Phelan, former Irish player and a great man, still working out in Kerala Blasters, who I spent a lot of time with during my time out there, and a good friend. And his whole thing was always, and it stuck with me, about, well, everybody needs to know their role. You need to be very, very specific. You need a job description and follow that. And the other thing he always said was, enjoy yourself. He said, lads, just go out and enjoy yourself. And enjoy the occasion, enjoy the match. Okay. I laugh when I look at that picture, because when I say about our home, Ruislip was our home, our fortress. And that was in the lead up to the Galway game. And I asked the county board to bring in the sidelines of the pitch by 2 meters on each side. So we'd lose. The Galway boys, whippersnappers flying down the wing, the Corofin lads would have 4 meters less on altogether. The county board, of course, chickened out of it somewhat and got scared, but I think in the end they managed to bring it in by 1.5 meters on each side. So I don't know the Galway noticed, but our pitch was definitely narrower on that. And my attitude to that, Mickey Hart tried to hide that Tyrone didn't change their sidelines when they were playing Dublin. It's your home. You do as you please with your home. Jose Mourinho used to put the sprinklers on or dry out the pitch or whatever. That's your home and you do as you please. I always told the players then that you can do things on that day that you never thought possible. So on the big day, I've seen players do things that, wow, I've never seen that before. I've done myself on a big day. I never thought I had that in me, and I actually did. And you have to grasp that opportunity. And my job and the coach's job always was to get the players up to that finishing line. And I did a vlog, it's over on my website, about the championship week, preparing for a championship match, and what things you had to do, the analysis, the coaching, the nutrition, the meetings, and all that stuff. And your job was to provide the players with information about the opposition, the tactics. Your job was to set them up so that they have a chance. And I always said to the London lads, with 10 minutes to go, if you're still in the game and you have a chance to get across the line, well, we can't ask for more than that. Thierry Henry said in his autobiography about Pep Guardiola with Barcelona, with that brilliant 2009 to 2011 team, that Guardiola's job was to get the ball from the goalkeeper through the defending third, through the middle third, into the attacking third. That's his job, to get the players in certain positions and combinations and sequences. And after that, in the final third, Thierry Henry on the left, Lionel Messi in the centre, and Eto'o on the right, then you do as you please. So that's where the creativity comes into it. These are things that I got wrong and the lessons learned. I know it's a cliche, but it's a cliche for the reason. The relationship with the person, with the player, is the absolute key. And that comes before everything. It comes before coaching, comes before sports science and everything like that. That's the key. You also need to manage up. It's probably something that I didn't get right. Lost my position with London because of it, even after having points with the chairman in Croke Park one day at Congress. But you have to manage up also, and that was a good lesson for me for the rest of my career. Noel Dunning always told me, go with your gut. Always go with your gut. About setups, about teams, about picking players, about subs. Go with your gut. And I think it's a brilliant piece of advice. I think as well that when you're the manager, if you can do less coaching, more managing, it's more important. And I think the likes of Jim Gavin probably have that with Jason Sherlock there previously. Even more or. So we never pushed our players too much. But obviously when you're with London and things are a little bit different and level of player you're with, players can pick up injuries. And unfortunately for us, we had critical injuries, let's say in our last season, Liam Gavigan, Killian Butler, lads like that, getting injured, and we can't afford, lower down teams can't afford to lose players. So that's a critical. So even sometimes like Harry Redknapp, he was in QPR. You can't say he wasn't a coach. You can't even say his knowledge was amazing about football, but he had a feel for the team. He had a feel for what go together and how to get the best out of players. And maybe sometimes we should have said, even if it wasn't physically the right thing to do, maybe we should have said, you know what, lads, take the next 3 or 4 days off. Let's see you on Thursday night. And that can be a big thing. There could have been a bit more focus on players' lifestyle. Now, obviously, that's a player ownership thing, and the lads could have done more, I think, at times. But away from training, what are they doing? There are times when you have to compromise your values and rules for the Mavericks. And there's a great story about Alex Ferguson and Eric Cantona where Ferguson told all the players to turn up in their club suits. Cantona turned up late for civic reception in his jeans and a bomber jacket. And Ferguson goes around laughing, telling all the players, Jesus, would you look at Cantona? Isn't that brilliant? So with the Mavericks, you have to compromise sometimes. And then, do you know what? It's all about the next game. No matter how frustrated you get, it has to be about the next game at all stages. Last little bit. These are the real take-home messages for me. It's all about the good people in the staff, in the players, with everything. And the value system that you have to be open. And we started always with, well, why is this? Well, why not that? I don't want to hear people saying, oh, well, you can't do that and you shouldn't do that. Nah, maybe, and we don't have time for that. It's like, well, why not? Why can't we do that, actually? Let's try that one. And the culture, I'm such a believer in player ownership. And if I was ever involved in in my work and stuff like that, I'd give even more ownership over to the players. As I say, if you can speak so little and the players more, we are onto a good team. And my club team, the great Horswood GAA, are testament to that, with the likes of Darren O'Reilly and Derek and Leo Bryan and Stephen and Niall Collins. They were the guys speaking. And our coach and manager, Aidan O'Brien, was the one who facilitated that. The individualized coaching, utilizing expertise. So utilize good people that you have access to. So in your club, there's architects, there's engineers, there's builders, there's different people. They have expertise in different things, but also utilize different specific coaches for defense, attack, goalkeeping, and tap into that. And then all of the sports scientists. So trying to tap in to the psychology, the nutrition, the fitness testing, the profiling, and everything like that. And that's really interesting. Last few little things. So as always, thanks to QPR, they've always been great supporters of me. Thanks to the London players and the guys that went on us on that journey, which was a fantastic time. And two organisations that have supported me a lot over the last couple of years have been the GPA and also Stat Sports. Just before going, I did want to mention, as regards over on our website, we have a community of coaches and sports scientists and S&C coaches. It's online. It's great for the moment with such conversations going together and everything like that on WhatsApp and on our closed website. And basically I put up all the drills and practices and everything like that. And also the locker room podcast. I had a couple of little videos at the end that Joe Coulter did. They were quite cool, but I'm sure we don't have time. But these are the kind of things that we have up, the training plans and stuff like that. That's the great Tyrone of 2008 team, Muggsy and Sean Kavanagh and the boys. And it's just all over on the website. And it's quite good little stuff. And the last one is just like the little drills and practices that we did. So Peter, that's it. I'm sorry it took so long. I'm sorry it was so long, but this is an area that I'm so passionate about and it's so interesting. And there's lots of contact details there if anybody wants to get in contact. But I know it's late, but if anyone has any questions, I'll gladly stick around and answer.
Thanks, Ciaran. We were late starting, but we thought we'd never stop at the same time. Thanks for that. That was a fantastic presentation. There's been a number of questions come in from a few guys, and we might stay around for another 10 minutes or so just to work through some of these questions, just to be fair to everybody.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of speakers over the last number of weeks talking about mentors that they've had and coaches that they work with, and you mentioned a number of people there. What type of questions or teams or what are you asking those guys?
Well, the times that I spoke to those lads mostly were actually when things weren't going right. So when I was down. So when I remember, for instance, the first season that I was involved, and as I said, we tried to keep within 6 points of everyone, and we didn't against Mayo, fine. But the one game in the league was a home game or an away game for us against Wexford in Wexford Park. So I wasn't very thankful to the players for getting beaten. I think we were beaten by 20 points or whatever. And I rang that night. I was so down about it, and I was ready to kind of go, well, it's not working, and this is my last season. And I rang my old coach and teacher, Aidan O'Brien, and I basically, I mean, the few questions that I asked him really were that, well, what would you have done differently? How would you have approached this game? Or what do you think? And really what he did was that he kept putting the questions back on myself, and I reflected myself. And it wasn't that he was giving me any answers or anything like that, but it was a chance. He gave me the space to reflect myself and think, well, actually, I have the answers. So I knew all the answers to the questions, and he just gave me that space. Alongside that, I mean, Noel Dunning with the London team helped me a lot, and that was a case of just a general conversation about different things. About, I'd ring him up and my question would be, I have an idea, and what do you think? And it was as open and closed as that, really. And it's trying to have an open question where you give them the space to go, well, actually, you know, maybe that could work. And how do you feel yourself? And again, it's you have the answers, and they're just trying to extract it from you. So if you have a mentor who's giving you all the answers, they're not a good mentor for you.
And again, you spoke about the attitude of, let's see if we can do something. Let's try and do something here. And a number of questions came in from people along the lines of, how did players react to that? Were there ever any ideas to come up with and players said, Ciaran, you think you've gone a bit too far this time? Or especially maybe players who hadn't been used to maybe some sports science support or that type of innovative coaching?
Yeah, no, it's really, really good question. So well done to the lads asking that. A couple of things on that. We had a player leaders group. So we had 6 lads that we chose who we felt were either experienced, they've been around the block a bit, they're some of the best players, but also the different type of characters that they are. And we would always make sure to put in at least 1 or 2 inexperienced lads as well, because they would have a different approach. And what we would do is that before we enacted anything, after I would speak to the staff first, then we'd have a meeting with them lads and we'd say, listen, we're thinking about running with this. Now, in general, they were very supportive of it, but they also threw out the issues, the potential issues about, well, this could come up and maybe players may have issues with that. So it was a good forum to kind of speak through those things. There were times when they weren't always sure, and it was a case of, I would say, look, trust me on this one. Let's run with this and give me that support with this. Because if the main players and the leadership group and the captain push it, then you've definitely got a chance. As regards some of the players then not being open to the kind of the innovation and stuff like that, yeah, we definitely had that. And I think in some ways you could say that our setup suited more a Dublin, a Kildare, a Tyrone, a Meath than a London, because I think the higher up the divisions you go, the more those players are looking to get every last bit of information and new innovation. So some of our players didn't, but I did take the attitude of, well, you're never going to get everybody all the time to buy into this. And I knew that there might have been a fullback or a cornerback or whatever who was thinking, do you know what, this is a load of bullshit. But as long as he didn't become a negative influence on the other players, I didn't mind. And that's what I mean about like managing the kind of mavericks of like, well, let him, but as long as it doesn't affect other people. And that you'll normally have a third of the player who will 100% back you in everything. There'll be a middle third who will basically kind of go with the flow. And there'll be hopefully smaller than a lower third who will question and everything like that. And that's just the way coaching is.
And you mentioned the various pillars then that you built things around, and you mentioned Shane Mangan's session there last week as well, and it's all related. What would a typical what would a training session look like, and would you try and cover each of those pillars each time, or would you try and space them out over the week to make sure each got a sufficient period of time across a week?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So how a training would look, first of all, okay, so we had a game on a Sunday, let's say a National League game in Ruislip on a Sunday. So Monday we would have off, players would do their own recovery. Tuesday would be a gym session, so that'd be a group gym session, 60 minutes, 45 minutes, maybe 60 minutes, RPE of about 7. Okay, that'd be a strength and power-based session. Wednesday night then on the pitch, so that would generally be, depending on the time of the season, but let's say if it's the week of a match, it's probably going to be a 75-minute session. Outside matches will probably be a 90-minute session. RPE for that would be, depending again if there was a game before the weekend and a game after, let's just say might be a 7 out of 10. Thursday would be off. Some players I know would do an additional gym session or kind of stability session, mobility session on the Thursday. Pitch again on the Friday. The Friday would be about a 60-minute session. I don't believe in less than 60 minutes because I think 45 is too short. You don't get through enough. So 60 minutes. RPE would be about a 5 for that session, and Saturday off into Sunday. Now, in terms of hitting different pillars throughout that week, definitely not. You don't hit all pillars on the one night. Like Shane Mangan, as he said, he called them principles and sub-principles. So for instance, if I run with that, his terminology, what I would say is on the Tuesday or on the Wednesday night, we'd probably work on our defence. Okay, so we might work on defending as a unit, as a tight unit, when the opposition have the ball and you're set up. Okay, so the yin and the yang of coaching. So the defenders are working on defending as a unit, but obviously the attackers then are working on controlled possession, keeping the ball outside a defence that's set up. Okay, so then on the Friday night, I'm going to work on the opposites. So I'm going to focus more on the attack. And I normally like to have the last session before the match to be focused on attack. So I'll do the opposite. So on Friday night, I'll work on the attack, but the counter attack. Okay, and the yang of that, the defence, they're not going to be well set up, so they're going to work on their defending out of balance. So they're trying to get back into position, and that will generally be a full length or 3/4 length where some of the defenders are in place, others are out of position, the attackers get the ball and they're sprinting forward on the counter-attack. So in that way, you're covering 4 major bases of 2 defensive setups, 2 attacking setups throughout the week. And then you drip in other stuff, like in your possession practice, you might work on tackling or boxes work or your kicking or whatever. So they're like your kind of subcategories, let's say.
And for clubs then maybe that have either less access to players or maybe less of a setup than that, if they were only going, for example, a couple of times a week, what would your advice be for those clubs?
Well, actually, the club season or the club week, club setup lends itself quite well to a really good periodized week. Because if you think of the professional football world, like they will train Monday, Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, match Saturday, off Sunday. Okay, so they'll generally have, like on the graph I was showing, they'll have an up and down. So Monday will be very light, Tuesday will be high, Wednesday will be off, Thursday will be relatively high, Friday really low, and then match. So if you think of your club week, you have all that, only take out 2 sessions because you're only going to train two nights a week. So you can still do the same. So I would say to club coaches, pick 1 session and do your hard work that night. Okay, generally do it, please, further away from your match. So on your Tuesday night. So if you train Tuesday and Friday, make your session Friday light, make your session Tuesday hard, working on your fitness. In terms of then what to do, a really easy way of thinking about, and obviously, as I say, Peter, you can go deep into these things, but really easy way to think about is Tuesday night, then your conditioning session, have everything small-sided. So do your tackling, your 1v1, 2v2, small-sided games, 5v5s, do your shuttle runs, your fitness work, whatever it is. And then on your Friday, do your expansive work. So a large-sided game, phase of play, kick and drills, everything is going to be slightly lighter. Everything is going to be more focused on the match for the weekend. So that's a kind of a nice, easy way of thinking. Tuesday night, small-sided, intense. Friday night, expansive and less intense.
And I really like the David versus Goliath analogy that you were using there at the start, because all of us, I think, look, the vast majority of us are involved with the teams that are David rather than the Goliath, unfortunately. But very often, whether it's a club level or county level, when a championship draw is made, a number of players might say, well, we're not going to win those games, are we? You know, if there's a group of 3 or 4 in a county and you happen to be drawn out against 2 particularly strong clubs, you might how would you keep motivation going for those type of players?
Yeah, I mean, in my own experience, and I suppose like I can only speak about my own experience and see if it's applicable to your own. But we thought of those days and as a challenge, as an opportunity, and it's all about how you frame it. So you as the coach or the manager, if you're from the very beginning of the season saying, Jesus, you know, we're playing Galway or we're playing Kyle Nairn in a club or we're playing Corofin, sure, how can we beat Corofin? You know, a Galway club team, let's say as an example. Well, you need to frame that right from the beginning, because we knew with London, we knew who we were going to be playing months in advance. Okay, so what we did was how we framed it, and also we prepared for it. And how we prepared for it was throughout our league. Let's say we had to play Leitrim, Limerick, Waterford, Wicklow, Laois and Derry. Now we knew the Laois and Derry games are going to be very difficult. So then we said, okay, we're probably not going to win those games in our league. We're going to put all our focus on winning the matches against Leitrim, Waterford, Wicklow, whatever. But against Laois and Derry, it's going to be basically a dry run of the big match against a really tough team, the Corofin. So we're going to put in certain things in place then to practice for that day. So we would replicate a lot of stuff. And if it meant that you had to be a little bit defensive, extra defensive, or set up differently or whatever, well, then you wouldn't wait to play Corofin to try out those things. You'd probably practice it in a league game earlier in the year that doesn't matter as much. And I always found that that was a good way to get those players to kind of engage in it, because like that's one game, but there's always going to be other games. You know, you can lose the Corofin, but you can still qualify out of your group stage. So there's little kind of how you frame it, how you prepare for it, and like for those big games, like against the best of the best teams. I mean, I did my homework. You know, I made sure whatever information I gave to the players, I knew more. So I knew about Shane Walsh, I knew about Damien Comer, I knew about all that. So that's where, in ways, the manager and the coach in preparation for Corofin, you have to keep up your side of the deal. You have to prepare the players. You have to do your homework. You have to get your information. The players then have to keep up their side of the deal, and they need to see this, okay, this is an opportunity for me to challenge myself against the best of the best. And I think most players will enjoy that experience. Like, who doesn't want to challenge themselves playing against Corofin and show what they can do personally?
Yeah, I think it's a great attitude to have for it, and I think it's a really good approach. Just before we finish up, then again, you mentioned a lot of mentors and people you've worked with and spoken to. What maybe was the best piece of advice that you were given that you did follow?
I mean, I suppose like the one that always stuck with me, and I did say it already probably in the presentation, so sorry for being a disappointment, but it's to go with your gut. You know, it's really to go with your gut, especially as manager, because as a coach, like you have a different role as a coach. It's a very, very different thing being a coach and a manager. And I learned that, like I was a coach of the London team at 31, and then I was manager at 32. And you have so many different things to take care of, you know, to look after that player and to deal with dropping players and to deal with subbing players. And it's a tough gig. But I think to go with your gut on everything is the best way, because like you're in the position because you're good. There's something about you. Nobody gives you a manager position, a local club manager position, or a coach because, you know, well, you've got nothing. You've got something. You've got some experience or some knowledge. So tap into that knowledge. And actually, the other one, and again, Noel Dunning, who was my mentor, was the one who said it to me, is to be straight with players. And that was a challenge for me. Like at the beginning, I was young. I had played with some of those players. I played against some of those players. And it was a challenge to just be brutally honest. And I think I got better at it over the years. And that was from good advice from Noel about just tell them straight up. Because how many times have you heard a player saying, do you know what? I wish he had been up front with me. I wish he just had told me the truth. Or if I'm not good enough, say, well, look, this is what you need to improve on, and just be brutally honest. I think as regards, just to diverge slightly, as regards little bits of advice I could give, like the experience of coaching the kids down in the park, age 5, was amazing, and that stayed with me all through my career in lots of different roles. And so what I'd say to people is just get out and coach. You know, just get involved, help with this team, help with that team. And I know the great thing with the GAA is that that's what people do. It's built on volunteerism of people helping out, you know, down at the local club. Like Tommy Walsh goes down and helps his local kids team and stuff like that. And it's built on that. But anybody who's wanting to take coaching a little bit more serious, or sports science or S&C, get out and just get involved and coach and help, because you learn something from everything. You learn something from it, including like your webinars and stuff. And the other thing is, like, I used to read books about coaching and sports science and everything like that. And obviously I do, you know, tap into a lot of that stuff. But what I do now actually is I read books about individuals. So I read about Guardiola, I read about Klopp, about Mourinho, about Arrigo Sacchi, back in the 1990s and 80s, Italian football. I read articles about like, just be a bit of a sponge for knowledge like that, and go and get information. Like, watch the Michael Jordan documentary and stuff like that. But just be a bit of a sponge and take on information, because you'll learn lots. You'll learn lots.
Ciaran, thanks very much for your time. You've been really, really great tonight and over the last number of weeks and putting all of this together. We really appreciate it. And
thanks,
for the 500 or so people that were here this evening, just a sincere thanks for that time.
Great, thank you.
For everybody on the call, we continue with this series next Tuesday, and we've taken a slight turn in our approach. Obviously, with some various announcements that have been going on the last while, and there's some light begins to appear at the end of the tunnel. We're looking at a session being delivered by Eamon O'Reilly. Now, Eamon is a chartered physio, and he's the lead of Spark in South Dublin. It's a clinic there. He's worked with the Dublin hurling team since 2011 and has been involved with the international rules team for the last 3 series. And his session will be on returning to Gaelic games post-COVID, keeping your squad fit and preventing injury. So the webinar will look at issues facing GAA players in the current situation and how to address them, look at return to play and ways that you coaches can maybe help with time out of play. We'll also look at specific ways of tailoring training to avoid injuries, both in small groups and large group scenarios when players return. So he'll discuss injury prevention and recovery strategies during the condensed calendar, maybe that is to come as well. So that should be a really interesting session for everybody, and really hopeful and helpful for the next number of weeks. So the registration for that session is open now on the GAA Learning page. You can go and register right now, and as always, the link will come out on Tuesday, depending on when you register. You should get it early or afternoon on Tuesday. So again, thank you, Ciaran, for your time and effort, and best wishes for the rest of the season.
Thanks, Peter.
To everybody on call, thanks very much, and we'll see you all again on Tuesday, and enjoy your weekend.